How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end?
Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on YouTube, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble. And mostly we do deep dives into the cult of the far left. We sometimes talk about the cult of the far right, though not the woke right, because anyone who believes the woke right is a real thing is they're retarded or they've been lied to. Listen, a lot of people have been lied to about this woke right nonsense that James Lindsay tried to shill. Um, just show of hands. Like, okay, so I'm actually curious now because we've had some new people on the channel lately, and I think that's awesome. I'm a big fan of new people coming to the channel. Press 1 in the chat if you believe the woke right is a real thing. Press 2 in the chat if you do not believe that the woke right is a real thing. I'm honestly just curious about where the audience is netting out now. Yeah, okay. Okay. Good, good, good. Okay, okay, okay. Now, listen, if you think the woke right is a real thing because you've been lied to by people that you trust to tell you the truth, it's okay. It really is. I actually feel so bad for some of the people. Fuck you. Fuck you. He's lying. There are very few fighters of the woke right that go to greater effort than this guy. Okay, good. We are all on the same page that the woke right is not a real thing. I mean, this day and age, you have to take what you can get. And if that's all I can get, then I am fine with it. Because on this channel, we do like to hinge into reality. We hinge into yes, it's true. Actually, people think that I'm the biggest James Lindsay A-log. No, no, no. No, no, no. It's this one. It's this one right here. It's so true. Listen, I don't want to talk about James Lindsay, okay? We can talk about him another day. We can make fun of him another day. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow for Friday. Maybe we'll watch maybe on Fridays for happy hour, we usually watch like just a general content video on the internet and I drink some beer, we talk about it. Maybe we should watch James Lindsay's interview with Roseanne for Friday tomorrow. I can go get some beer. Your time to shine. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Thank you. Anyway, we don't want to talk too much about that today. We'll figure that out later. Hey, I want to do a big welcome to all the new subscribers on the channel. If you just found my content, welcome. You're about to get shown things on the internet that you never knew were real. Things that will shock you, things that will amaze you, things that will terrify you. And if you're really, really lucky, you'll become obsessed with this content just as much as me and my community have for the past several years now, because we dig into rabbit holes of the far left on the internet that no one else goes to. And guess what? Because of that, because we literally do this 6 days a week, we watch leftist content pretty much 6 days a week, every week, perpetually, forever. Some might say this is purgatory. Some might say this is hell. I don't even know anymore. But because we watch all this content, we are able to actually extremely accurately predict what the left is going to do. And we've been predicting all this for months. I literally talked about how Antifa was going to attack the ICE facilities in January because they were writing about it on the website. So if you want to discover the real far left, not the stuff you've seen on the media, not the stuff you've seen in conservative media, because conservatives have got it just as wrong as anyone else. Hey, welcome. Join our community. Yep. Average person, thank you for the super chat. Hey, can I give average person a great big thank you? I actually haven't shown this on the stream yet, but I have to show it to you guys. Okay, so for everyone that's new here, one of our favorite leftist topics to cover on the internet is abolish the family content. If you have never interacted with real abolish the family socialists, because there are people on the far left that their whole mission in life is to abolish the nuclear family. Why does the left want to abolish the nuclear family, you ask? Well, it's not because they want people beholden to the state over their family. It's because the left believes that the nuclear family is the literal means of reproduction of capitalism. And without the nuclear family, capitalist society would not be reproduced over and over and over again. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but essentially the too long didn't read is they think they have to abolish the nuclear family in order to get to capitalism. And if they don't, then capitalism will just keep reproducing via the nuclear family. That's what they believe. We are not going to debunk them right now. I don't want to get into a big abolish the family thing. Yes, and by the way, their alternative to the nuclear family is to literally grow children in bio bags. It's true. surrogacy. Everyone, perpetual. They also don't believe in parental rights. Anyway, this is a whole terrifying topic of leftism that you all are going to become intimately familiar with if you stick around my channel. Anyway, my favorite, our absolute number one favorite socialist of all time, her name is Sophie Lewis. We are Sophie aficionados on this channel. Sophie is our goddess. She is my perpetual internet girlfriend, whether she likes it or not. She is our ginger dragon. And we watch Sophie's content all the time. And Sophie has written several books about abolishing the nuclear family. And she's the best. So recently, Sophie did a book talk for Red May. Red May is a group of socialists out in Seattle. They're the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists. And Sophie just wrote a new book. She wrote a book about how the only way to be a feminist is to be an anti-capitalist. And so Sophie was on her book tour going around to revolutionary socialist bookstores all over the country. And wouldn't you know it, but I have spies in Seattle. I have people in Seattle, very, very brave and awesome people in Seattle that have followed my lead, have learned my content, and now those people go undercover at leftist things themselves. So if you're in my community, guys, if you want to learn how to go undercover at these things and see them for yourself and do it in a way that is safe and do it in a way that you understand what's going on, I will teach you. I have had multiple people in my community learn to go undercover just like I have. And they go to leftist events and they do recon for us and they get us propaganda and stuff like that. Sometimes they record things and then they bring it back to the community and we share the information. So if you want to learn how to do that, it's actually fun. It's scary and terrifying, but it can also be fun. Tayton tagged you in this video of some con who posted a video of a guy saying he got offered $200 for No King's Day to protest without showing receipts. That didn't happen. Guys, there are so many people online now saying, I got offered all this money to protest. It's all bullshit. Do not believe any of it. It's always put out there by conservatives to drive this narrative. It's not real. Now, maybe some people are getting reimbursed for a taxi cab. Maybe some people are getting a per diem for lunch. But there is no one who was offered $200 just to show up at the No King's Day the No Kings protest and actually just go. It's dumb. It's stupid. Anyway, back to Sophie, a far more intriguing topic. So I have spies all over the country, and one of the places I have spies in is in Seattle. And so Sophie Lewis went and did a book talk for her new book, Enemy Feminisms, at a bookstore in Seattle. And wouldn't you know it? But one of my spies got her to sign the book to me with a heart. And it's the greatest thing that I've ever been given. It will be bestowed a place of honor in my office when I eventually redo it on my wall. I'm going to get it its own little case so that it can never get ruined. I am going to treasure this always because Sophie is my goddess and my internet girlfriend, and we love her and we adore her, and no one will ever besmirch Sophie on this channel, and she's really thrilled when I watch her content. Sophie just loves it when I watch her content and comment about it on the internet. It's like her favorite thing in the world. Sophie also loves it when I comment on her Instagram photos where she shows off her boobs, because Sophie really does have good boobs. Listen, I'm not a lesbian or anything. Women terrify me. But like Sophie has got a great rack and she likes to show it off on her Instagram profile. and Sophie posted a picture of herself in the bathtub last month. And I just thought, the bathwater was a little dirty, but I just thought it was great. Yep. We love Sophie. And I adore the person who went and braved the socialist bookstore to get Sophie to autograph a copy of her book just for me. Just for me. It's not for any of you. It's for me. These are the types of adventures that we have in my community. All right. So there's that. So today, guys, we got a couple things I want to do, and we do have another spy stream coming up later. Everyone, please make sure to mount the like button for me, if you would be so kind. today on the stream, we are going to be talking about a couple things. One of the first things we're going to be watching this video from yesterday. So this is an Antifa training document. I wanted to watch it yesterday. It's an audio recording of it. Let me see this. Thank you, Naruto, for being a member of the channel. Even HG Tudor is covering the riots due to Meghan Markle event getting canceled. Well, HG Tudor, listen, if HG Tudor ever wants to be respected as a narcissist, he needs to diagnose Jordan Peterson. I'm sorry. I'm not even interested in HG Tudor anymore. I'm going to be really honest. Like when HG Tudor got pissed off that we asked him to diagnose Jordan Peterson as a narcissist, and he got all, I will not be obviously manipulated by people on the internet. Like when he got all pissed off about that and got his panties all in a twist, I lost so much respect for him. It was an absolute unnecessary hissy fit. It was a helpful suggestion, and quite frankly, HG Tudor would have gotten a lot more views covering Jordan Peterson being a narcissist based on my suggestions and recommendations than he got off his entire J.K. Rowling series. No one even watched the J.K. Rowling series. He could have taken all that energy and put it into Jordan Peterson at exactly the right moment. But no, he refused. I think HG Tudor is scared to diagnose Jordan Peterson as a narcissist for some weird reason. I don't know why he would be afraid of him, but I think he clearly is. And until HG Tudor puts on his big boy pants and does the thing that everyone on the internet knows needs to be done, then I'm going to say that he's a pussy. And I don't care what he has to say about Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is boring. Boring. So that's my opinion on HG Tudor. Currently, I used to be an HG Tudor fan, and now I am not, because he is a giant pussy that isn't diagnosing Jordan Peterson on the internet like he should. He has one job. Whatever. His choice. Dragon Balls, I'd like to take this moment to say hi, Jill. If you don't know who Jill is, don't worry about it. And thank her for reminding me to throw money your way for Nick Fuentes super chats. Thanks, Dragon Balls. I appreciate you as always. Love and adore you. Thank you. AJN, I honestly think that people who join the far left extremist groups are compensating for their inability to get laid, not start a revolution. Well, stick around when we cover Queer Marxism, because they talk about sex a lot. Actually, if you really want to see some good stuff, a couple weeks ago I've done 3 streams lately called Queer Ultraviolence. Okay? Queer Ultraviolence is a queer Marxist book that we're reading for my book club. And if you want to have some fun and see how the left talks about sex, go back and watch the very first Queer Ultraviolence stream I did a couple weeks ago, and you're going to learn all about how something is like the anus. What the fuck was that? Do you guys remember what that was? Was anyone here for that? I know you guys are going to make me look this up, aren't you? What the hell did the left say about the anus in that one? I forget. Anyway, go back and watch Queer Ultraviolence #1, and you're going to see exactly how much the left talks about sex. And it is actually kind of crazy. They use sex as a political statement. It's very kinky and weird and BDSM-y and wrong and polyamorous and queer and all these other things, but it's crazy. Trendolin, I played the Penguin and the Boner song yesterday. Where were you? I thought you were in the chat. You sent me $50 yesterday, and as my thank you to you, at the end of the stream, I played both the Penguin and the Boner song. And now you want me to play them again? Trendolin, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that again. Can I cash this in another time and I'll watch another episode of the Whatever podcast or something? Only if Andrew is debating. We're going to talk about Andrew in a second, by the way. I have beef with Andrew Wilson right now. Kind of. Not really. Just a little tiny bit. Actually, why don't we do that? Okay, so we are going to be listening to this Antifa document in a second, but we're putting the Antifa document aside so that I can talk about why I am upset at Andrew Wilson, because, it didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to be this way, Andrew. It just didn't have to be this way. I don't understand. So yesterday, Andrew Wilson did a show with Jake. Is Jake Rattlesnake? Is that who that is? I think I follow him on Twitter. I apologize if I'm getting the wrong person. I suck at names. And then Dave Smith, and I do not like Dave Smith. Dave Smith is afraid of me, quite frankly. Dave Smith is like terrified of me. It's actually kind of funny. I'll tell that story another day, but he legitimately is. Anyway, so yesterday, Andrew and Dave Smith and Jake watched a little bit of one of my clips from one of my spy streams. And I just want to play you the first little bit of this because I was live on the internet yesterday when this happened. And then people from that chat started coming over here saying, debate him. And it was all playful and fine. And I wasn't upset about it or anything. But let's watch what happened.
I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
My clip is-
As we are watching the
All right, so now we've got Karlyn Borysenko, who infiltrated this meeting with something Greenberg. I can't remember what Leah Greenberg, who is the head of Indivisible, who's the organization that's organizing the No Kings protest. She
Recently, Carolyn said on my Twitter that she adores my debate style.
True.
I didn't have the heart to tell her that it's only because she's never been on the other end of it. But hope here's hoping, gentlemen. Here's hoping.
escalation of brutal raids.
You know, it is true that I have started to enjoy Andrew's debate style. And, you know, this is an interesting opportunity, right? Because Andrew and I do disagree on some things. One of the things we disagree on is that we do have to teach him how to pronounce my name. It is Karlyn, like George Carlin, except spelled way different. That's okay. That's okay. Common mistake. I don't hold it against anyone for that. However, it was funny because I didn't watch this clip until later last night. But right after I got off my stream, I DM'd him because we have chatted in DMs just back and forth here and there, just a teeny tiny little bit. And I DM'd him and I said, hey, I heard you showed my clip on your stream and said some stuff. Thanks for that. And people told me I needed to debate you or something. And he wrote back and he's like, well, do you want to talk about libertarian ethics? And I kind of was like, I don't really want to talk about libertarian ethics because it's just like, I honestly don't really care right now about libertarian ethics. My head is deep in the far left and that's where it's going to stay. And so I said, no, but I'll debate you on any sort of like leftist thing if you want to talk about that. And then he kind of played it off. He's like, no, it's just a stick. And he was like, yeah. So Andrew was clearly not interested in debating me on the left, even after he made this whole big thing about she just hasn't been on the other side of it. Okay. Wasn't really worried about it. And then after I chatted with him in DMs, and again, I wasn't upset or anything, I went and I actually watched this. And I was like, sir, I don't know if I appreciate your tone on this show, sir. Do you actually think that I'm afraid to sit across from you in a debate? On the far left, especially. And so I posted on Twitter. I said, hey guys, just so you know, Andrew doesn't seem to want to debate me on the left because he didn't really seem interested in it in the DMs, which again is fine. I don't actually really care either way. But I posted publicly, I said, well, it kind of seems like Andrew isn't interested in debating me because after he made that comment with that tone, is she's never been on the other side of it. I'm not the one that's afraid. And so I posted that on Twitter and then I DM'd it to him and he responded and he said, I never said I wouldn't debate you. I was like, okay, what topic do you want to debate about on the left? And he said, well, give me some topics. And I said, well, what do we disagree on? And then I said, oh, I know what we disagree on, Andrew. I know what we can debate about. Does the left hate white people? I lobbed Andrew the softest of softballs. There is no bigger softball question that I could gift him for a debate with his audience watching, because you know exactly what's going to go on. His audience thinks that the left hates white people. The left wants to genocide white people. They don't understand that when the left says whiteness, they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about systemic racism or the system that upholds racism, which is, of course, capitalism. And, I would be able to present my receipts. And, the funny thing is, and I don't know if Andrew knows this, I wrote a whole book about this earlier this year. It's called A Brief History of Racism. This book starts at the invention of the term racism, which happened in 1902, by the way. The word racism was created in 1902, and it follows the evolution of the definition of the term racism all the way up to the modern day. And if you read this book, you're going to find out that the definition of racism very rarely had to do with skin color. It almost always had to do with capitalism. They've said it overtly for decades. And I provide quotes and historical context all throughout the book so people can see this. And I don't know if Andrew knows that I wrote that, but I did. I did. And I offered to have the most softball debate with him that I could possibly have, which is, does the left hate white people? And he said, okay. And I said, okay, sir, when would you like to have this debate? And he said, not for at least a couple of weeks, because this is a really stupid gay topic. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, listen, I know Andrew Wilson is more busy than I am. He goes on all these shows, and I respect that. You know, he travels, he actually does stuff. I sit at home in my house and I think about the left. So I was like, okay, Andrew, I am at your beck and call, and you can let me know when you would like to debate this topic. But you know what I thought was funny about it was the almost instant deflection of like, I can't do this right now because this topic is gay and stupid or something like that. I was like, Andrew, why don't you want to debate the most softball topic that you possibly can with me? Is it because you know I would kick your ass because I know all the historical context for this, and you debate stupid OnlyFans girls on the internet, and I'm not a stupid OnlyFans girl, and I have the entire context of this like a Rolodex in my head. And not only do I have the entire context of this as a Rolodex in my head, I also have the video documentation from all these trainings that we've been watching for years, including Cheryl Harris at UCLA in 2014, 20 years after she wrote the paper, Whiteness is Property, at Harvard Law School, explicitly saying that whiteness is not about skin color, that Black people can be white too, that whiteness is always about capitalism. And in addition to all of this, I understand the dissident right-wing position on they believe the left wants to erase white people and all of this diversity stuff is to get rid of white people. And I also understand their arguments about racial consciousness. And I'm actually can be very respectful of those arguments, even if I don't like them or agree with all of them. But I actually understand what the right wing believes when it comes to why they think this is about killing white people. And I know how to explain, listen, I understand why you believe this, and the outcome of what the left is doing is inevitably in this direction, but you still have to understand it's a different problem. And so could it be that the king of debate himself really just doesn't want to debate this topic with me? Could it be that the king of debate might be a little, because now this is twice within 24 hours that Andrew seems to be posturing on his show while she just doesn't know what it's like to sit on the other side of me. Okay? Tell me when, Andrew. Tell me when. And if you don't want to debate whether or not the left hates white people because you just found out that I literally wrote an entire book about this topic and can run circles around you without even trying very hard. If you don't want to debate this topic, if you want to switch to like literally any other topic on the left, just name the topic, bro. Name the topic. I will literally talk to you about any topic on the left that I cover. I cover gender ideology. I cover queer theory. I cover environmental justice. I cover abortion. I cover every major activist topic on the left. So pick a topic. Find a disagreement. I will literally debate you on any of them. So we'll see. The ball is in the debate king's court. And we'll see who's afraid to sit across from who, Andrew. Game on. Game on. Anyway, so that was a fun thing that happened. One other thing before we get started is a viewer of mine sent me a really short video. And I kind of just want to watch it real quick. Share the tab. And so one of the topics that we do cover on this channel, again, is queer Marxism. Gender ideology is under queer Marxism, the idea of like trans and all this stuff. And the main goal of the far left when it comes to gender is that they want to abolish gender entirely. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Non-binary means no binary. It's a reference to abolishing men and women entirely. How many people in the chat understand what I mean? Okay, so one in the chat, if you understand what I mean when I say the left wants to abolish the gender binary. Two in the chat if you don't understand yet and you would like me to do just a brief little refresher on this so that you can understand what I'm talking about. I'm really trying to be mindful that there are a lot of new people watching my content. And I want to make sure we're teaching people, guys. And I want everyone that's been watching my content for a while too, make sure everyone is patient with the new people that are here, because they're new to this. And there was a time when you were all new to this. And so I want to make sure that we're teaching everyone and we're bringing everyone along. Okay. I'm being so nice to new people right now. You guys don't even know. The veterans on my channel will tell you I am usually not this nice to anyone. But I'm being very nice to all my new subscribers right now because I don't want to scare you guys away yet. You haven't really even dug into the content yet. You're new. We're breaking you in. We're breaking you in like a new shoe. Okay? All right, let me just get, I think I got a super chat. Yup, hey poetry painter. Yup, hey. Hey girl. Hey Jill. Hey Jill, I better send Nick Fuentes another super chat, girl. All right. The brief explainer for what the left wants to do in regards to gender. The left believes that capitalism, which they define as private property ownership, created the socially constructed concepts of gender. That means the capitalism created men and women. They believe that the categories of men and women are fake, made-up categories based on the cultural model of capitalism, which put men in the workplace where they had access to all the power and all the money. It put women in the home where they did the unpaid labor of having and raising the next generation of workers. That means the children. And because of that, that created a hierarchy when it came to gender, with men on the top and women on the bottom. And the left believes that all hierarchies create oppression, all hierarchies create suffering, and capitalism is the thing that created this hierarchy. This is also known as the patriarchy. Every time you guys hear the left say the patriarchy, this is what they're talking about, okay? Capitalism created the patriarchy. So how do you solve this problem? If you believe that if you want to abolish capitalism, as the left wants to do, and you believe that capitalism put men and women in different categories and one category oppresses the other, how do you solve this problem? Well, the solution the left has is to abolish the categories. That's how you get rid of the hierarchy. You get rid of hierarchies when you abolish the categories. When you abolish the categories, you abolish the idea of men, you abolish the idea of women. Non-binary means literally no binary. Whenever you hear the left talk about things like beyond the binary, and we're going to watch this video and we're going to see what it says, what they're talking about is transcending or transforming gender to get rid of men and women entirely and create something that is not created by capitalism. That's essentially what that means. That is what they believe. You don't have to agree with them to understand them, but that is what that means, okay? Now we're going to watch this video beyond the binary and we're going to see what it says. Okay. This video is meant as a short, very basic introduction to gender beyond the binary. That's exactly what I just explained, for people who have never heard of it or do not know much about it. It is very simplified and does not aim to represent the complexity of reality, but rather to give a basic understanding of what non-binary gender is.
Ah, yes. The male. Confident. Strong. Well, something like that. And over here we have the female. Sensual. Mysterious. But not always. And what are you? Yes, you! Well then, you might be what we call a non-binary. But before we can understand what a non-binary is, we first need to know what binary means. The word binary describes a system of two options. It's one or the other. Non-binary means everything that doesn't fit into such a system. In recent years, there's been a whole bunch of people that helped make gender beyond the binary more visible. Whether they dared to express themselves regardless of gender norms, they were representing their gender identity, or they worked on the inclusion of non-binaries in speech. So what is gender? A person's gender is made up of three aspects: their sex, their gender identity, and their gender expression. Sex describes the physical sex you were assigned at birth, what's between your legs. Gender identity describes what you identify as on the inside, regardless of what sex you were assigned. Gender expression describes the way you express yourself, so the way you dress, act, etc. For most people, all three of these happen to more or less match one of the binary genders and conform to what is expected from that gender in our society. But they don't have to correlate, neither with one another nor with a person's sexuality. A non-binary indeed, huh? Well, then you get to choose your pronouns. There's a lot of pronouns besides he and she that you can use. Some of them were generated by people who felt the existing ones weren't accurate enough to express themselves, whilst others were pulled from already existing language, like they, them. If you're not sure which pronoun someone uses, just ask them, or use their name. So, let me introduce you to some other non-binaries. Whether you identify as genderless, as both binary genders, as a completely different gender, as a bit of all those things as they come and go,
Wow.
or you just don't know. In the end, gender is
Just don't
fluid
know.
and is experienced in as many different ways as there's people on this planet. What counts is that you can be you.
So that is what the left teaches kids in school regarding gender. What we just watched in this video, and this video is 8 years old. It's 8 years old. But I promise you, they've been teaching this stuff in schools long before that. So a lot of people think a lot of people will use the term groomer, right? I used to use this term a lot more. I don't use the term groomer as much now because when most people use the term groomer, they're referring to sexualization of children. Now, I'm not saying sexualization of children doesn't happen. It does happen, absolutely. And it's a problem and it should be dealt with as soon as possible. But what I also want people to understand that most of what the left is doing in regards to gender ideology isn't actually sexualizing kids. Sexualizing kids is not the goal of gender ideology, regardless of what people might say to get clickbait on the internet. The real goal of gender ideology, especially in schools, is to convince kids that gender does not exist, to convince kids that gender is fluid, that you can change your gender as easy as changing an outfit. That's what Drag Queen Story Hour is really about. Drag Queen Story Hour is not about sexualizing kids. Drag Queen Story Hour is about teaching kids when they're very young that gender does not exist. Okay? And so that's the actual enemy. Because right now, a big problem that we have is somewhere around like 40% of kids in high school right now actually don't believe that gender is a real thing. If the left's goal is to abolish the gender binary, then you can't create a law saying men and women don't exist and you're not allowed to think that. That's not how they're going to do it. The left thinks about these things in the long game. They make small iterative changes over time, and they wait for those changes to play out over the course of decades. They are teaching an entire generation of kids right now that gender is non-binary. Gender is not real. You can change your gender like changing an outfit. You can change your pronouns every single day. They're doing this so the kids grow up believing these things are just socially constructed. They're made up. And that is how they're going to abolish the categories of men and women. And the reason they're trying to abolish the categories of men and women is it gives them better access to try to abolish the nuclear family. And again, I mentioned this earlier, they literally wanted to abolish the nuclear family because they believe the nuclear family is the social reproduction mechanism of capitalism. So that's a lot, especially if you're new. But that was a good video, and I want to thank the person who sent that to me because I appreciate that we had a minute to watch it. Okay, guys, before we get into our main show of Antifa, I just want to remind everyone, make sure you are subscribed to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. You can find all sorts of good stuff on my Substack to include breakdowns of the far left. Check out the Woke 101 section for a lot of introductory content. If you're new to my work, go to the How to Speak Socialist section. And what you're going to want to do if you want to deep dive into the language of the far left to really understand how the left uses language differently than we do, check out the How to Speak Socialist training. This is totally free on my website. This is actually a 4-hour masterclass where I put together dozens of clips from leftist trainings that we've watched over the years. By the way, if you think some of the Antifa stuff that we've been looking at this week is crazy, there are many crazier clips in the How to Speak Socialist presentation. The How to Speak Socialist presentation is just like your overwhelming crash course in here is what the left believes based on their trainings. So you can see it and you don't have to take my word for it. You can see it for yourself. Hang on. I'm not installing a new browser right now. brave. What the hell? So check out the How to Speak Socialist training. And if you appreciate my work and you want to support it, please make sure you sign up as a supporter for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% independently funded. I am not a part of any political tribe. I take no political money at all in any way. I am funded by real people to show up and to show you the receipts and to tell you the truth and to teach you how to understand it. And if you guys don't fund my work, it doesn't get done. But I will not sell out to any political tribe. I will never shill any political narrative. When you come to my content, when you come to my Substack, you know you're going to see direct evidence from the left yourself. And then you can decide what to think about it. And you can ask all the questions you want and I'll answer them. But ultimately, that's my job, is to show up and show receipts and tell you the truth. And that's it. Do you believe that most of these people who claim they're queer or non-binary know the actual meanings behind them? Yes. Well, not when they're younger. Not when they're younger. But many, 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 many people who are using these terms absolutely understand the meanings behind them, because this is stuff they've been learning in school. You have to understand the things that we watch are the things that they watch in school. The things that we watch are the things they talk about in their meetings. And so it's the right that tends not to understand this because they're not in the same schools. They're not in the same meetings. But yes, people on the left 100% understand, and I will show you that, and it will become very, very clear if you stick around and watch Queer Marxism. All right, let's get into the Antifa video, shall we? So this is a video. This is actually like an audiobook. But what I wanted to do is I actually haven't listened to this yet. So Antifa has a publishing arm called CrimethInc. CrimethInc publishes a lot of documents that teaches Antifa basically how to protest and do what they call direct action. When they're doing direct action, they're usually trying to cause problems. That means they're going and they're getting in the faces of cops and they're trying to provoke cops to act violently towards them. It might mean that they are at a protest using umbrellas as weapons or spray painting things or putting their propaganda up places, or they're figuring out how to do first aid, or they're learning how to deal with tear gas canisters, or any of these things that they might do when they're causing trouble. CrimethInc puts these documents out on the internet so it can get disseminated in a decentralized way all over the country. There are people who sometimes create audio versions of those same books. And so what we're going to listen to is an audio version of this guide, and we're going to listen to it and talk about it. You can see it's on CrimethInc's website. It's called A Step-by-Step Guide to Direct Action. And the reason I want to listen to this and I want to talk about it is we are going to see Antifa out this weekend in direct action. When you are watching these protest videos with Antifa, that's direct action. That's going out and causing problems in some way. And so this is Antifa's publishing arm providing guidance about how to do direct action. And so we want to read this, and then we want to see how often do we see this stuff showing up in the actual protests and riots. And it could actually be a fun experiment. I would love to hear from people. If we listen to this and then you go and watch the riot coverage later, pay attention for what inspiration you see them taking from this, because it's just an interesting exercise to go from watching this stuff in documents to it being in the real world. All right, everyone, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Everyone, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want to be. Let's get this party started.
A step-by-step guide to direct action. What it is, what it's good for, and how it works. This was published March 14th, 2017 on crimethinc.com. I also thought it was kind of funny that it had the tags for adventure, how-to, and tools. Anyways, text begins. Direct action, simply put, means cutting out the middleman.
Hang on. I think I missed a super chat. I apologize. Bob Paul, I apologize. Do you consider Saul Alinsky, Hillary, and Obama communists? Well, this is a great question. I mean, Saul Alinsky, certainly. Saul Alinsky provides, Saul Alinsky was the original, right? He wrote the original documentation on how to protest. I absolutely consider Saul Alinsky to be a communist. Hillary Clinton, nah. Hillary is a globalist. Hillary is like a WEF techno-fascist. And so the WEF is not the same as the radical revolutionary far left. So no, I do not consider Hillary Clinton to be a radical revolutionary socialist at all. And honestly, Obama has moments where he says things that are very socialist, but ultimately I think Obama's going to fall out more on the WEF side as well. I think he's an elitist. Guys, and again, like, I've been undercover at these people's events before. I've heard them talk when the camera's not on. The radical revolutionary far left does not like the WEF. And I know people are like, well, they're all globalists. Well, sure, they're all globalists, but it's kind of like, you have to think about it in terms of, like, think about baseball. The Yankees are a baseball team. The Red Sox are a baseball team. Does that mean that the Yankees and the Red Sox are on the same team? No, it doesn't mean they're on the same team at all. In fact, the Yankees and the Red Sox hate each other and have been in a centuries-long feud. And so all it means is they're going to fight at some point. I really actually firmly believe the radical revolutionary far left have the upper hand in the United States. I believe the United States government is eventually going to fall to them. I really do. I believe we've got like 10 to 15 years left before these people actually try to overthrow the federal government. And I've talked about that in other videos. But what people need to understand is, like, at some point, the WEF and the radical revolutionary far left are going to fight. And that's going to be super fun for all of us, won't it? So that is my general opinion on it. Hey, thanks, Donnie Girl, for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. All right. Let's keep going.
Solving problems yourself rather than petitioning the authorities or relying on external institutions. Any action that sidesteps regulations and representation to accomplish goals directly is direct action. It includes everything from blockading airports to helping refugees escape to safety and organizing programs to liberate your community from reliance on capitalism.
Oh.
Here, we present a step.
They're organizing, part of their direct action is organizing programs to liberate your community from capitalism. People often ask, they're like, Karlyn, are you sure the left just wants to abolish capitalism? And I'm like, yup. And the reason I'm sure the left wants to abolish capitalism is they literally talk about it like all the time.
Airports to helping refugees escape to safety and organizing programs to liberate your community from reliance on capitalism. Here, we present a step-by-step guide to organizing and carrying out direct action, from the first planning stages to the debrief at the end, including legal support, media strategy, and proper security. There are countless scenarios in which you might want to employ direct action. Perhaps representatives of despicable multinational corporations are invading your town to hold a meeting, and you want to do more than simply hold a sign.
That's basically, they're talking about the WEF right there. They're talking about like, I mean, they okay, it's not the WEF specifically, but it's like those type of people. They're talking about going and protesting like these globalist things that come to America.
Perhaps they've been there a long time, operating franchises that exploit workers and ravage the environment, and you want to hinder their misdeeds. Perhaps you want to organize a festive, community-oriented event, such as a street party. Direct action can plant a public garden in an abandoned lot, or defend it by paralyzing bulldozers. It can occupy empty buildings to house the homeless or shut down government offices. Whether you're acting in secret with a trusted friend or in mass action with thousands of people, the basic elements are the same.
So I just want to point something out. You guys understand, right? They're talking about basically destroying buildings. They're talking about destroying vehicles. They're talking about destroying businesses. They've already talked about breaking the law at least 5 or 6 times in this document, but they do it in a way that's kind of flowery. But everyone understands what they're saying, right? They're talking about breaking the law to break stuff and to take people's property and destroy things and firebomb things and set off fireworks in the middle of the street and attack the police and attack businesses that won't do what they want them to do and all that stuff. Everyone's on board with that. That's what they mean. So direct action can mean a lot of things, but it absolutely means doing illegal bullshit.
Direct action in a nutshell, a step-by-step guide. First of all, brainstorming. Choose a project and devise a plan. Brainstorming can start with a problem you want to solve or a social contribution you want to make. It can be informed by the resources you have, the kind of experience you desire, or the people you want to work with. You can plot a single short adventure or a long-term campaign. Often, the best brainstorming occurs in the course of daydreams and informal conversations. It's good policy to trust that your craziest ideas can become reality and try them out.
Yeah, try them out. Great idea.
By the same token, even when attending events organized by others, it's best to bring a plan so you can contribute in your own way.
Even when attending events organized by others, it's best to bring a plan so you can contribute in your own way. What does that sound like? What does that sound like that's happening this weekend that we talked about yesterday on the show? Even when you're attending the events that other people put together, have your own plan so that you can take advantage of those events in your own way. What does that sound like? Remind me. What did we talk about yesterday? Remind me. Yeah, it sounds like what they're doing with the No Kings protest, doesn't it? Because Antifa is not involved with the No Kings protest. They're not involved in the organizing. But what they are doing is creating a special flyer so they can crash the No Kings protest and hand out their flyers and take advantage of them. And so now we've just heard them say directly, like, if other people are holding an event, we're going to try to figure out how to take advantage of that event to push our messaging.
If it makes sense for your action to be organized openly, establish a format such as a public assembly in which to work out a strategy and tactics. Invite friends or circulate flyers or go from door to door announcing it. Come up with your own proposals ahead of time in case no one else does. For more clandestine actions, brainstorm in a secure environment with a trusted friend or two. Keep your ideas to yourselves as you hash them out so you won't have already given them away when you're ready to try them. Goals. Establish and prioritize the goals of the action. Who is it your action for? Is it directed at on-the-spot spectators, corporate media viewers, the owners of specific corporations, their stockholders, the police and government, other members of the community, the participants themselves? What is it intended?
That sounds like they're coming up with a pretty in-depth plan. And they're basically, they're saying, here is all the different people that we can go after. We can go after community members. We can go after businesses. We can go after politicians. We can go after certain people who are saying things that we don't like. They're planning strategically. Antifa is not, and I think actually this is a really important point that I want to make sure people understand, because a lot of people came into the chat yesterday and they were like, maybe not yesterday, but I've seen a few people lately in the comments going, they just want to cause chaos. Well, they do want to cause chaos, but I want everyone to hear the chaos is strategic. The chaos is intended to elicit extremely specific goals. So this is not a recent document. The document was published in 2017, but they still use this today. This is still like their standard operating procedure today. So it's on their website still to this day. Hey, thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, they should definitely hide their ideas from me because I'll put it all over the internet.
To accomplish? Is it meant to communicate ideas, to call attention to an injustice, to inspire people, to secure resources, to set a particular tone, to inflict crippling material damages, to provide a deterrent, to demonstrate a model others can apply, to serve as a learning and bonding experience for those involved? Establishing a shared understanding of the goals of the action from the outset will save a lot of headaches later when your plans shift and potential conflicts arise. Structure. Affinity groups. Work tightly with those you know. One of the most efficient and secure models for direct action organizing is the affinity group model. An affinity group is a group of friends who trust each other deeply and share the same goals, working together over a long period of time. They become efficient and effective.
So I want to point this out too, because, hey, thanks, Bob Paul. Thank you. Are Marxists and communists the same? Are Marxists and communists the same? Well, Sometimes yes, sometimes no. For our purposes on this channel, I use the terms Marxist, communist, and socialist pretty interchangeably. There are differences between those terms. However, the reason that I use those terms pretty interchangeably is I've been to leftist events and I've heard leftists themselves refer to themselves as Marxist, communists, and socialists in like the same sentence. So the left is pretty colloquial with how they use those phrases, which is why I'm pretty colloquial with how I use those phrases. The biggest distinction I make among the left is, are they a revolutionary socialist or are they more of a reformist, democratic socialist of America? That's honestly the thing that matters the most, because it tells us, are they still using the electoral process to get things done, or have they given up on the electoral process entirely and are focusing instead on overthrowing the federal government? Because Antifa wants to overthrow the federal government. They're not doing things through elections. They don't vote. They're not running candidates. They're not doing any of that. They're just causing chaos and destruction. The reason they're doing it is they want to overthrow the federal government. So the Democratic Socialists of America, who want to work within the electoral system, listen, they're socialists. They want a post-capitalist world. But the Democratic Socialists of America are a much more manageable problem because they want to work within the current system. And that's why the revolutionary socialists hate them so much. So there are different factions of revolutionary socialists. We'll talk another day maybe about Leninists versus Stalinists on the far left. But for our purposes in general, I use the term socialist, communist, and Marxist pretty interchangeably, and people will just kind of like learn that. But I appreciate the super chat and the support. Thank you. So what I was just going to say here is what Antifa just said was the best people to organize and do direct action with are your friends. They're your buddies. You trust your friends. You trust your buddies. It's like a club. It's a social thing that they do together. This is part of why the left is able to spin up protests at a moment's notice. It's not because Antifa is a well-funded organization. I don't care what you guys see on Twitter. Antifa is not a well-funded organization. They're just not. But Antifa has been organizing with each other for years and years and years and years and years. They've developed a very wide social net. They've developed their entire subculture. People are involved in this. It's their identity. These are their friends. These are their comrades. So the reason they're able to spin things up so quickly is not because they're paid to do it. It's because this is their social outlet. And you just heard the document say the very best people that you can organize with and do direct action with are your friends. Yeah, so this is important to understand if you're going to be here. We do not look at philosophical Marxism here. There are plenty of people who talk about what I call the dead philosophers on other channels. We don't talk about the dead philosophers. We don't read Marxist philosophy. There are plenty of people doing that on the internet. What we do here is we listen to real leftist training and activism. We listen to the people who are out there doing it in the real world. We listen to what they are teaching today, because what they're teaching today sometimes bears a resemblance to the dead philosophers, and it sometimes doesn't. So a lot of people, if you're looking for the philosophy, you're not going to find it here. I'm not going to review that stuff. I will only show you real world things that are actually happening right now. Maria Callas fan, I still have friends who don't realize I left the left who will text me and say, want to come with me to X protest tomorrow? Well, just nod and smile, Maria. Nod and smile. Let's continue.
For a small action, the members of an affinity group can take on different roles. For a larger action, affinity groups can work with other affinity groups in a quote-unquote cluster, each group playing a role. This can make decision-making easier than it would be in one big mass, as each group can send a representative to a spokes council. Clusters of affinity groups can work together over long periods, building trust and effectiveness. Recruiting. Bring in other individuals and groups carefully. Once you have a plan to propose, figure out how many people you need to accomplish it. If your plan requires secrecy, invite only people you trust to keep secrets and that you are sure will want to join in. Everyone you invite who doesn't end up participating is a needless security risk.
Oh.
Extend invitations one by one, or affinity group by affinity group, so those who decide against participating will not know anything about the others involved.
Smart.
Start by asking general questions about what a potential participant could be interested in, and don't reveal critical details of the plan, such as exact target or date, until he or she is ready to make a commitment. As people are brought into a plan and go on to bring in others, make sure everyone has the same understanding of the appropriate degree of security. As more people become involved in the project, it's important that everyone understands how much commitment is expected of them. Sometimes the group that first presents a plan will be more invested in it than others. If they do months of work preparing only to have another group they depended on drop out at the last minute, all that work is wasted. Everyone shares the responsibility of being honest from the beginning about what is realistic to expect of them. At the same time, those who initiate a project should be careful to share ownership with everyone else involved.
I want to just mention this. Some of you know I used to be involved with like the MAGA movement and stuff like that. I was involved with the walkaway movement in 2020, one of the biggest mistakes in my life, but that's okay. Can't go back and change things now. Anyway, so the reason I bring this up is when I was involved with the walkaway movement in 2020, I basically got toured around the country for like 6 months, going to rallies and speaking at rallies and stuff like that. And so I say this because I've been involved with a lot of like conservative organizing. I've been involved with, I've gone to all sorts of different conservative meetings and different things. I've been to CPAC. I've been to all this stuff. Conservatives and right-wingers do not plan like this. We're not even halfway through this document yet, and you can already tell Antifa is meticulous about every part of their plan, who they're bringing into it, who they're leaving out, what are they targeting, what is the goal, what is the thing. They're thinking through every painstaking detail of this. And I'm sure as we continue with this document, it's just going to be more like the same thing over and over and over again. This is why it's so dangerous every time right-wingers dismiss the left as insane. This is not how insane people behave, guys. It's just not. They have a completely different set of values than you. They want a completely different worldview than you, but this is not how insane people behave. More so, it's the left that's actually putting all this effort and all of this strategy into every single thing that they do. Well, at right-wing events, and again, I've been to my fair share of them, most of what they're doing at right-wing events is networking and drinking and hookers and blow in the hotel room afterwards that we're not allowed to talk about. We're not allowed to talk about how Tinder always goes down when the Republicans or the CPAC or the RNC is in town. We're not allowed to talk about that. But like, I've been to their events. They don't go to planning meetings and talk like this. I've been to local Republican meetings. They don't talk like this. The left is highly strategic, highly organized, constantly pushing forward with their batshit insane ideas while the right is out having martinis. This should terrify everyone. Oh, you're right. I don't mean Tinder. I mean Grindr. Grindr always goes down when the Republicans. I'm sorry. I'm not up to speed on my gay sex apps. Okay, I'm a married woman. I've been married 14 years. I don't know how that stuff works. If the right just looked at what the left was doing and applied like half the energy that the left is to doing exactly the same thing, the right would be so much more effective in terms of actually getting shit done.
Dynamics. Make sure power is distributed evenly within your group. Make all decisions in a participatory and consensual manner. If your group is large enough to warrant it, use an informal or formal consensus meeting process to make sure all voices are heard. Set the agenda of each meeting together and pick a facilitator to keep things on track. The more that everyone participates, the better informed the decisions you make will be. Be aware of internal dynamics that may be unbalanced, such as those between people with different backgrounds or between local organizers and participants from out of town. The more everyone participates in planning and preparing for the action, the more invested in its success everyone will be. A group with good internal dynamics is smarter than any individual can be. Individuals can bring in ideas, but together the group can work out the best way to apply them.
Yo, that is actually so true. So this is another example of how the left the left operates as a collective, whereas the right operates as individualism. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting individualism is bad. In my heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I believe that the individual is at the premium, right? So I'm not suggesting individualism is bad. However, what I want you to notice is the left, when they're organizing, they put a high premium on making sure there is group consensus around what they're doing, rather than just a bunch of cowboys running around like chickens with their head cut off. The left is very conscious about how they run meetings. And you'll see this in the content if you come to the streams where we're watching socialist content. Socialists run meetings in a very strategic way where it is literally all around group participation and group consensus and that sort of stuff, because they are collectivists. They believe in that. But some of their tactics in terms of how they organize and communicate with each other do work. Now, I can sit here and say, I functionally reject collectivism as a model for society. But I can also say getting along with the people that you're trying to do stuff with is actually sometimes a good idea. And you'll probably be more effective if you have good communication and that you're not always infighting and trying to stab each other in the back and doing all sorts of insane bullshit. Like, some of their techniques are probably a good idea. They're just being used to achieve evil ends. But that doesn't mean the techniques don't work. So listen to what they just said again.
Good internal dynamics is smarter than any individual can be.
Good internal dynamics. A group with good internal dynamics is smarter than any individual can be. That is 100% correct, guys. I firmly believe that, honestly, if the right just took everything the left does and applied it to their ideas, the right would win. And I'm much more further right than probably many of you. But, like, literally, if you just take what they're doing, their tactics, and you apply it to better, more right-wing ideas, the right would win, because the right's ideas, at least on the dissident right, are better than the left's ideas. But what's happening is the left is focusing all their energy on doing this. They're being highly strategic. They're working together. They're having good communication. They're pushing and organizing every single day. And the right is tweeting about it. The right is whining on Twitter. The right is clout chasing on Twitter with the latest piece of clickbait content and shit-talking each other and starting infights and stabbing each other in the back and making stuff up and spreading it all over the internet that isn't even real, while the left is actually just keeping their heads down and continuing. And this is why they win. It's not because their ideas are better. It's because they're more focused, while the right is engaging in internet bullshit and drama.
Individuals can bring in ideas, but together the group can work out the best way to apply them. Make sure everyone feels supported and comfortable throughout.
Okay. Shut. Listen, all new people are about to get a dose of the hazing. All right? All new people are about to get a dose of the hazing that will happen probably to all of you on this channel eventually. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. The right is busy running businesses and having children. You sound like a leftist to me. Are you retarded? Are you retarded? I have an IQ requirement on this channel. You have to have at least 100 level IQ in order to be in my audience. And if you're on this channel and you're listening to me painstakingly break down every aspect of leftist organizing, and your reaction is that I have a job, you're a leftist. Go fuck yourself. You can run along to Fox News and the Daily Wire now. You're not smart enough to be here. You're not smart enough to follow along with this. And we don't want you here disrupting us, because people like you are the problem. We're just running businesses. Do you think the left doesn't have jobs? The left has jobs. They all have jobs. They do this in addition to their jobs. You think the left isn't having kids? Honey, I can show you leftist childcare programs. I can bring you up an entire fucking PowerPoint talking about leftist childcare programs to indoctrinate their children at their leftist meetings to become future leftists. This is the type of bullshit that leads to the left winning. And now, because I have judged that you are not smart enough to be here, you are banned. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. We're never going to listen to you again. Goodbye, you're gone. Bye, bye. Have a nice life. Enjoy Fox News. Bye.
The project. Check in with each other outside of formal structures as well as inside them. Though often overlooked, maintaining morale is a critical aspect of successful direct action organizing. Keep level heads in the face of surprises and uncertainty. The basics. Security culture. Circulate information on a need-to-know basis. Reader's note, I read What is Security Culture earlier. I'll put a link to the video in the description and at the end. Security culture is a way to avoid unhealthy paranoia by minimizing risks at all times. If you and your friends always conduct yourselves wisely, you'll have less to fear from infiltration and surveillance. The essence of security culture is that information is shared on a need-to-know basis. In some cases, the whole town needs to know about your action for it to be a success. In others, it is crucial that the action is never spoken of outside the circle of those directly involved. Everyone privy to the action needs to share a sense of what level of security has been deemed appropriate and to respect others' needs regarding safety. Consent is as important in security as it is in sexual intimacy.
Yo! Oh,
It is-
can I just say, the left has totally destroyed dating with this consent culture bullshit. Here, can you please sign this consent form before I put my arm around you at the movies? It's like, shut the fuck up and just do it. The left has ruined men. They have ruined dating. Thank God I got married before any of this. My husband and I have talked about this. My husband and I are like, even if we get in the biggest fight ever, we are never getting divorced. And I love my husband and my marriage is great. And divorce is nowhere on my mind at all. And I want to make that clear. But my husband and I have actually had this conversation where we're like, even if we get in like the worst possible fight, we are never getting divorced because we never want to date again. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I never want to have to date again. It is my very definition of a nightmare to date in this current age. And I really do feel sorry for all like the Zoomers and the younger people and all of you who need to navigate that whole thing, because like the left has ruined everything when it comes to relations between men and women. They just have.
Never acceptable to violate another's wishes regarding security issues. Make your own security needs explicit from the beginning. Swear an oath of silence together if need be. Never talk about your or others' involvement in past actions, however long ago, except with their express permission. When a group comes together to work on a project, make sure everyone present is vouched for by others in the group as reliable and trustworthy. To protect each other, you should be prepared to remain silent under interrogation and legal pressure. From the beginning of a project, you should operate according to the highest possible level of security it might require. You can always become less cautious later, but if you start out being careless, you close off a lot of options. Be aware of all the ways your actions can be monitored or tracked, the records of surveillance cameras, the purchases you make, the places you go, and the people with whom you are seen, the location of meetings, the items you throw in your trash, the websites you visit, the files on your computer, the fingerprints you leave.
Wow.
On the batteries inside a flashlight as well as on the outside of it, for example. And virtually everything that has to do with a phone. Devise codes and prepare alibis as need be. Legal support. Prepare infrastructure to provide support during and after the action.
This is important. Okay, you guys might actually see this in the protests and the riot streams. I know some people have been covering it. I think Andy No tweeted about it the other day. So the left, when they go into stuff like this, Did you guys know that the left trains people on how to get arrested? The left actually takes volunteers for people that are saying, I will get arrested in this protest. And they train them on how to do it, and they train them on what's going to happen. And then they provide legal support, and everyone shows up at the jail to bail them out. And they already have lawyers set up, and all of those lawyers are already paid for through mutual aid networks and things like that. So there is one organization specifically that you're probably going to be seeing at these immigration protests, and that's the National Lawyers Guild, NLG. And you'll see them wearing vests, and you'll see them saying that they're legal observers to the protests. They're actually far leftists, but they are providing legal services. But like, I want people to understand, these services are already set up beforehand. The people who are getting arrested, they know they're going to get arrested. They know they're going to go to jail. They've already accounted for all this. Everything's paid for. They don't have to worry about it. You know, I haven't seen them wear the green hats. I think that's a different kind of observer. I've seen them wear brown vests, but maybe it's the green hats. I'm not exactly sure, but let's just keep an eye out.
Everyone involved in the action should be aware of and prepared for the risks they are taking and the potential criminal charges associated with them. It's important not to take things farther than you feel ready to go. If you get hurt or arrested while engaging in a level of risk for which you are not emotionally prepared, the effects can be debilitating. Far better that you get started slowly building a sustainable involvement with direct action projects that can continue over a...
Hang on. No. Mutual aid networks are set up all over the leftist ecosystem. Just Google mutual aid. We'll do maybe a lesson on mutual aid another day. Mutual aid networks are small organizations that take in donations from people involved in leftist organizing. They then take those donations and they put them towards things like legal fees or paying for abortion pills or, you know, getting renting a bus or something like that. These are just small nonprofit organizations that take in small donations from the people in the community and they put it towards these ends. When you say, so they're funded, what the impression that you're giving is that these people have millions of dollars in the bank from like China, and that's not true. That's just not true. Antifa is not a well-funded organization. Antifa isn't even a real organization. Not technically. It's like a loose affiliation. So please stop saying this. Please stop lying to people. It's important people understand what's going on, guys. Another super chat from Bob Paul. Is any Christian expression tolerated in communism? Yes. Yeah, and we've actually heard them say this. We watched a presentation from the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists not too long ago where they were, listen, I've met Christian socialists. They honestly don't care if people are Christian. They really don't. I know that that's a talking point, but they don't care. I've also got them on video saying they don't actually care if people practice religion. They don't care. As long as those people are good communists, good comrades, they're in solidarity with the community, then they don't care. The vast majority of far left groups are not well funded. The people who are funded are the rare exception, except that they're the people that you guys talk about all the time. So everyone thinks that they're all funded when they're not. Like, we're talking like maybe 5% of far leftist groups are funded. Maybe, and I think I'm being generous with that 5%. The vast majority of our leftist groups are not funded the way you guys think they are. They're just not. It's just wrong. Anyway, back to the question. So what they think is going to happen when it comes to religion is they don't mind if people practice religion as long as they're good comrades. But they think that people are practicing religion to basically cope with being oppressed by capitalism. And they think as soon as they overthrow capitalism, religion will just kind of like naturally phase itself out because they don't think people will need it anymore. So you're right that that many of them are not overtly religious. They believe that once they liberate themselves from capitalism, they don't need that anymore. But there are absolutely Christian socialists. They are not trying to outlaw it. It's not a focus of what they're doing at all. And they just kind of think it'll naturally die off. And again, I have them. This is not my opinion. I have them on video saying this.
lifetime, then rush into an action, have a bad experience, and swear off all such activity. If your action may result in arrests, prepare a legal support structure for those who participate. This could include a legal aid number for arrestees to call, legal observers to monitor and document the actions of police,
Bing.
money for bail, lawyers to provide immediate support to arrestees and to
See?
represent them in court, and a circle of people prepared to offer emotional, financial, and logistical support throughout court cases. The legal aid number should be open to receive incoming calls at all times throughout the action. Bear in mind that in some cases you cannot call a cell phone from jail. The legal aid number should not incriminate the arrestees or the people who receive the calls. If part of your alibi is that you don't know each other, don't all call the same number from jail. If you fear you will forget the number, write it on a concealed part of your body in permanent marker.
That's why
The
they do
person
that.
operating the legal aid number should know the full names of those who may be
You guys have seen them write phone numbers on their body parts, right? Like a lot of people at the Tesla protests were doing this. Because by the way, Antifa also organized the Tesla protests. I hope people are clear about that. So in the Tesla protests, you would see people like with numbers sprawled across their arm. That's what they're doing.
arrested so as to check on their status. To bail someone out of jail, you can either give the entire amount of the bail to the court system, in which case you should receive it back after the legal process is finally concluded, or you can go to a bail bondsman and pay about 10% of that. In the latter case, the bondsman's fees may cost you a significant amount of money. If no one can pay bail, an arrestee may sit in jail until the court date, although in the case of minor infractions, it can happen that police release people on their own recognizance so as not to have to deal with them. If you are risking arrest, decide whether you want to have your identification on you to expedite processing or to be without it, so they cannot identify you immediately. A large group of arrestees who refuse to give their information can tie up the legal process and sometimes gain bargaining power. If you need medication, consider it.
Listen to this tactic. Okay, so they're basically saying, if you refuse to give them your ID, if a bunch of you just refuse to give them your ID, you're basically going to throw sand in their gears and you're going to tie up their whole legal process. So not only are they, planning every part of this meticulously, they're also trying to say, how can we fuck up the system? How can we make this go as slowly as possible? How can we create a backlog for them? How can we make things difficult for them? They plan every part of this meticulously. Yes, which is why they get let go so often. That's exactly right. We actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure this was in Los Angeles yesterday. In Los Angeles yesterday, the LAPD spent all this money and time trying to kettle the rioters, which basically is like form a perimeter around the rioters. So they were supposed to arrest them. That was the plan. They were supposed to arrest them. And then after they spent all this time forming this giant formation around all the rioters to get them in a fucking circle, they just let them all go. And they said, all right, everyone go home now. If you're out after this, then we're really gonna arrest you this time. It's not like last time when we told you we were gonna arrest you. We're actually gonna arrest you this time. And so what I think happened, and I said this on Twitter, I was like, oh shit, the LAPD is running out of resources to arrest people. Like, that's why they let them go. They were supposed to arrest them. Then they decided they didn't have the resources to arrest them, and then they let them all go. And I commented on that to, I think, Anthony, who's doing great coverage on the ground. He's one of the people that is on Twitter posting all this stuff. And he replied back and he said, no, I think they've got the resources. But then someone else replied to me, someone who was actually in Hollywood, and that person was listening to the police scanner. And he said, no. On the police scanner, they're saying they don't have the resources to arrest people. So that's exactly what's going on. Antifa is trying to slow stuff down. They're trying to create as many roadblocks as possible. And because of that, we just saw this yesterday, the LAPD, instead of arresting 80 of them, just let them go. And what happened? Now they're going back to organizing, and they're going to riot again tonight, and they're going to riot again tomorrow, and they're going to riot again the fucking next day because the LAPD doesn't have the resources to keep up with it.
To expedite processing or to be without it. so they cannot identify you immediately. A large group of arrestees who refuse to give their information can tie up the legal process and sometimes gain bargaining power. If you need medication, consider hiding it on your person or carry a note from a doctor explaining what you need. Find a sympathetic and trustworthy lawyer, or perhaps a few of them, since a lawyer cannot represent more than one defendant on the same charges. You can research which lawyers have taken on similar cases in the past or approach the American Civil Liberties Union or National Lawyers Guild. If you don't give away anything sensitive, you can ask sympathetic lawyers about the charges associated with hypothetical acts, or specify the dates and times you may require their services, but don't let them know anything that could implicate them. In order to do their job, they need to be able to prove that they are not connected to anything illegal. Any community whose members may suffer arrest would do well to...
Hang on. You guys are asking some great questions in the chat, and I just want to encourage people, please ask questions in the chat. I don't mind stopping this and taking breaks to answer questions, especially when they're like good questions. Vince says, also, all of these boomer protesters, since when did grandma and grandpa become activists? So it's actually funny. So one of the events that I went undercover at, it was the Socialism 2023 conference. The Socialism Conference is a big-ass conference that takes place in Chicago every year. Actually, it's taking place in Chicago in like 3 weeks. It's on 4th of July weekend of all weekends. And at the Socialism Conference, there was basically like two types of attendees. There was, of course, Antifa. There was a lot of extremely revolutionary leftists. There was absolutely Antifa there. There was a lot of them. But the other portion of the attendees are old boomer hippie grandparents who became leftists like during the 60s and the 70s, and they were like at Woodstock and stuff, and they're honestly just older hippies. They're old hippies. So like the boomer grandparents, they don't know about this stuff. They're old hippies, right? But that's why you see them at these protests. Is they're reliving their glory days of the 60s and 70s, and this is what they like to do, and this is who they are, and they're not changing now. We're not worried about them, though. We're worried about the revolutionary leftists, but we're not worried about grandma and grandpa. They can go be hippies. It's fine, like whatever. Hey, Dragon Balls, thanks for the super chat. Folks spreading misinformation funding. The CCP spread the same thing via the Hong Kong protests. I marched in the Hong Kong protests. I'm currently dating a super cute Hong Konger. Ooh, congratulations. Whose friends are disappeared. Wow. There was and is no funding. Be better. So this is actually a fairly good point. So Dragon Balls is an American, by the way. Dragon Balls is an American. He lives in Hong Kong. He does stuff there. I'm not going to say what he does or anything because like that's his info. But like he's an American that lives in Hong Kong, marched in the Hong Kong protests, and at the same time, the CCP spread the same information about the Hong Kong protesters being funded as is currently being spread in America about all the protesters this weekend. Isn't that funny? It's almost like it's a tactic that they roll out over and over and over and over and over again. Thanks, Dragon Balls. Appreciate you as always. Well, then Andrew can put on his big boy pants and debate me, bro. Just like he seemed very reticent to do. I talked about it at the beginning of the stream. Andrew does not want to debate me on the far left, so he can debate me, bro. Because I promise you, Antifa ain't funded by no NGO. Antifa is not funded by any of these people. But nice try, Andrew. Nice try.
Establish a bail fund in advance. This can save a lot of running around in the middle of emergencies. Throw benefit shows, sell t-shirts, solicit donations from wealthy sympathizers, have your friends at the university book you speaking dates at their school in return for student funds.
Yo, real. Fuck, oh my God. Revolutionary socialists do this all the time. That's so funny. I'm always kind of flabbergasted when I see revolutionary socialist activists that I know showing up doing speaking gigs at universities. They go to the universities, they get the university fund. Holy shit. So here's what happens. There's a lot of revolutionary socialists who work at universities. Those revolutionary socialists use their university jobs to hire the speakers for the universities. They bring in their revolutionary socialist friends to speak at the universities. We oftentimes watch their videos on this channel, and then they pay their revolutionary socialist friends with university money, which was probably federally funded. How funny.
This can save a lot of running around in the middle of emergencies. Throw benefit shows, sell t-shirts, solicit donations from wealthy sympathizers, have your friends at the university book you speaking dates at their school in return for student funds. Make sure the bail fund stays with someone who is even-handed, trustworthy, and always ready to reach. Likewise, consider what your media strategy will be, whether it will be wise to direct public attention and support to arrestees.
Listen, there are a lot of people in the chat right now saying, well, how do they buy this? How do they buy that? How do they buy this? How do they buy that? Guys, I'm going to make this really easy. The idea that leftists don't have jobs is fake. How do leftists buy fireworks? Do you know how leftists buy fireworks? They go to the store and they buy them because they have jobs. It's not as though they have no money. It's not as though, like, how do you go to the store and buy groceries? You go to the store and you buy groceries. It's like, how do you go to the store? Like, this was the big thing with like the college encampments. And like all the conservatives online, when the college encampments first started going up last year, they were like, oh yeah, how did they buy all those tents? And I was like, you're telling me you don't think some rich kid at Columbia University just took out daddy's credit card and went to a sporting goods store and literally bought all the same tent in the sporting goods store? Like, you don't think that they can coordinate on a Telegram group to all tell each other to go buy the same $60 tent or whatever? These people have jobs, guys. They have jobs. They have money. They're not completely divorced from the economic system.
Media. Establish what coverage you want and get it. Long before an action, when you are establishing and prioritizing goals, work out exactly how much media coverage you want, from which sources, and how you are going to obtain or avoid it. This could mean composing and sending out a press release, who, what, when, where, how, why, or a communiqué, electing a spokesperson to represent your project to the press, inviting corporate or independent reporters to the action or to a press conference, faxing announcements or making press calls, offering interviews in person or anonymously over a burner phone, or having members of your group cover documentation themselves. If you want to avoid certain kinds of coverage, it could also mean assigning a participant to make sure photographers do not aim their cameras at you. If you are communicating with the media, compose talking points, sound bites that your spokesperson repeats to be sure they get in the media coverage. Give representatives of the press as little material to work with as possible, so they will have to use the part you want them to. Keep track of which reporters tend to provide positive coverage and approach them personally. If you have a website,
Hey,
get this.
Keep track of which reporters are talking about us positively, and make sure you build a relationship with those reporters so you can plant news stories with those reporters. They're so strategic.
Address into corporate media coverage to reroute their viewers to your media. You can also provide information to the public yourselves by posting, pirate radio, speaking events, or starting conversations door to door.
Listen. I've seen you arguing with Chris for like a good solid hour now, and I haven't said anything. I have 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. 2, no whining. I can say and do whatever I want. Your job is to act like an adult and take the feedback that I'm about to give you. I was at the Capitol on January 6th, and you are on my channel. I set the rules on this channel. If you are not here to listen and to learn what the left is doing, then what you're doing with this constant arguing in my chat has become a distraction. I don't want to see you arguing anymore. If you have questions about what is going on, you seem to not be listening to any of it. The goal of this channel is to listen to what the left is doing so that we can learn from it. When I have people constantly arguing in my chat over things that have nothing to do with what we're looking at, that creates a distraction for everyone. I know there are a lot of new people on my channel right now, and I promise you guys, we're not going to haze everyone at the same time, all right? But I do have a very specific way I operate my channel. And the reason is I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but I am trying to create an environment that is conducive to learning. And what you're doing right now is not conducive to learning, and I'm asking you to stop. And if you don't want to stop, then I will just ban you from the chat. In fact, you're going to go in a little I can't. You're right. I can't hurt you, but I can put you in a timeout, and now you're not going to talk anymore. Bye. 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 Hang on. Clicking on the wrong thing. Don't want to ban the wrong person. Bye. You're in a timeout. You can't talk anymore. Bye. Bye.
If your action warrants high security, send your communique securely. For example, from a public computer that leaves no record of who uses it. Be aware of how the devices you use can incriminate you. Groundwork. Planning. Study the context, chart a strategy, plan for different scenarios. Proper planning is the essence of safe, effective, direct action. Keeping your goals and priorities in mind along with the resources you have to work with, plot and compare different strategies. Weigh out the risks and potential rewards of each. Always pick the safest way to accomplish a given objective and make sure you can afford to take the risks you choose. It sometimes happens that as the planning process goes on, a project will get more and more ambitious and hazardous until some of those involved start to have doubts. At that point, it may be necessary to work out a safer or scaled down version of the plan so it can still take place. There are countless factors to take into account in planning. You must pick the most effective tactics in the context of the current social and political situation. You must pick the best location for the action and take into account all its attributes. You must pick the best date and time of day. You must bear in mind the others who will be in the area and how they will react. Will they be sympathetic, or may hostile vigilantes interfere with your activities? You must coordinate the timing of different parts of the action, predicting how long each will take, and figure out how those involved in the action will communicate. When predicting the responses of others, say for example the police, consider the factors influencing them. Are they expecting what you're planning, or do you have the element of surprise? If you have the advantage of surprise, how long will it last? Will there be a lot of attention focused on the event?
Hang on. Okay, I suspect I'm going to be answering this question a lot in the next several days. So please be patient if you've heard me say this before. And it's not a dumb question. It's not a dumb question at all. So what can be done to combat all this is defense futile. So what I think, and why I've built the system that I've built, is the best thing that can be done to fight this is the first thing people need to do is unlearn every single thing they think they know about the left and start hinging into reality with what the left is doing in the real world. Because the problem right now is that the only defense that we have against the left is the right. And no offense to anyone on the right, and I'm pretty far right-wing myself, but the right absolutely sucks. The right is not doing anything to fight against the left. The right isn't even hinged into reality when it comes to the left. The right doesn't even know what groups they're looking at. They don't know what the left believes. They don't know what the left's tactics are. All the right does is whine and complain on the internet and spread misinformation around what's going on. So what I think we need to do is everyone needs to stop what they're doing and come back to reality. And I understand that outrage is fun on the internet and everything like that, but we need to, at some point, we need to actually start taking this problem seriously. If you do not understand your enemy, you cannot defeat them. So what I do on my channel is I'm trying to learn as much about the left as possible. I look at their real world activists. I look at their real world events. I look at what they're doing to cause chaos in my life. I try to break down their plans. I try to break down their communication style. I break down their language so that people can understand it. I'm trying to create a community of people and a grassroots effort to teach as many people as I can about what the left is doing in the real world. What I want to have happen is people come to this content, they learn as much as they can, and then they go out into the world and teach other people. Or they go out into the world and they go undercover at leftist events and they start teaching other people with more real world content. Or they get involved in political parties in their hometown and they teach this information there. Or any of these things. But no one is coming to save us. The conservative media establishment is useless. The conservative media establishment is worse than useless in that oftentimes they lie to their own audiences. So we can't rely on them to save us. We can't rely on politicians to save us. We have to save ourselves. And so that's what we do here. I'm trying to teach people as much about the left as I can. I'm trying to break down the language so that people can understand what they're looking at. I'm trying to break it all down into easy to learn, manageable chunks so that you guys can go out and talk to other people and teach other people and use all the resources I'm giving you. And if I haven't given you a resource yet, ask me for it. So people ask all the time, what can we do to fight the left? This is what needs to happen. People need to learn. And people don't want to do that because it's hard and it takes time and it's not easy. And I don't have a pill I can give you to teach you about the left in 5 minutes. I just don't. There are people that watch my content for months before they get it, before it clicks. Once it clicks, though, you will never see the world the same way again. Once you understand the language of the left, you will never see the world the same way again. You will never see Fox News the same way again. You will never see the conservative media sphere the same way again. You will never see anything in your life the same way. And that's when you become able to go out and teach other people what's going on. And that's how we wake more people up. And that's what needs to happen. Yeah, you can go to my Substack and look it up. I actually have a whole article on it. So actually I wrote it, well, probably about 6 months ago, but you can find the definition of woke on my Substack. So I hope that makes sense. Let me see. I think I got another super chat. Average person says, good, accurate information is key. Think about why espionage is so prominent in times of war. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're doing espionage on the left. That is what we're doing. Well, it might be a little too late. You're right about that. It might be a little too late. But unlike most people, I'm not going to look myself in the mirror and know I did nothing. Okay? So I have two options. I can either say, it's too late, there's nothing I can do, it's too hard, I don't want to do it. I can do that, and I can whine and complain till the Marxist revolution. Or I can say, you know what, as long as I've got breath in my body, as long as I have the ability to stream on the internet, as long as I can wake up every day and have the ability to do this with a community of people that are supporting me in doing this, I'm going to teach people as much about the left as I possibly can. I'm going to make it easy to understand. I'm going to break down the language, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. But at least I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day and know that I tried and I didn't just sit on my ass and wait for the far left to try to overthrow the federal government. Let's continue.
Will it be immediately apparent what you are doing? Will there be middle-class citizens or reporters around, and will their presence put a damper on the authorities' response? What is their strategy likely to be based on previous precedents for police behavior in this context?
Hang on. Sociology profs? Oh yeah. No, sociology profs are almost always communist. Yeah, 100%. Sociology profs are almost always communist. Thank you.
Bosses want them to come down hard on you or to avoid provoking a scene? How well do they communicate? How fast do they move? Where are they located? What routes will they take? Don't underestimate the challenges of simple logistical matters such as transporting people or communicating in stressful situations. Don't forget to plan an exit strategy either. Because plans rarely come off exactly as they are laid, it's important to have backup plans worked out for different scenarios. Quote, if blank will blank, if blank will blank, unquote. Have a few different objectives in mind in case your first choice turns out to be impossible. Having a basic structure for communications and decision-making in place will help you be prepared for situations that play out differently than any of the scenarios you had imagined. Be careful not to put others at risk for your actions. The authorities will probably charge whomever they get their hands on with the worst crimes they can, so it's important both to get those who take risks out of the area safely and to make sure serious charges can't stick to anyone else.
Do you guys hear that? They're like, here's what we do to protect the people who committed the most serious crimes, like firebombing that building. And then we go on the run and we get the people that firebombed that building out of there so that they can escape charges. You guys hear that? Focus.
Because plans rarely come off exactly as they are laid, it's important to have backup plans worked out for different scenarios. Quote, if blank will blank, if blank will blank, unquote. Have a few different objectives in mind in case your first choice turns out to be impossible. Having a basic structure for communications and decision-making in place will help you be prepared for situations that play out differently than any of the scenarios you had imagined. Be careful not to put others at risk for your actions. The authorities will probably charge whomever they get their hands on with the...
True. Do I think a false flag will happen this weekend? Yo, I don't know, maybe. It is not... Okay, so I think that there are several possibilities. Well, okay. I think there will absolutely be violence this weekend. I think there will absolutely be destruction this weekend. I think there will absolutely be fires and chaos and rioting and looting and all that stuff. I don't know if I think there'll be a false flag, but I think there absolutely could be. But I wouldn't make the assumption that just because something happens that it is a false flag. I also just think in general, we're basically seeing every single leftist group right now completely spun up about the immigration stuff. And so if something happens, it could actually just be a real thing. It could also be a false flag. I do think so I think that people just need to, like, when stuff happens, just take a deep breath and wait for the evidence to come out. And let's analyze it in, like, the light of day, because there's going to be a lot of misinformation. You always, like, what I'm actually more worried about than a false flag is the massive amount of misinformation right now. Because I think that the misinformation going on Twitter, where all the politicians pay attention, where all the media pays attention, I think it's the misinformation that's actually more dangerous to me than a false flag, because even if there's not a false flag, they could spin it all up to make it into a false flag. You know what I'm saying? So I think everyone needs to calm the fuck down and take a couple deep breaths. Shit's going to happen this weekend. It just is. But that doesn't mean we need to jump to conclusions. That doesn't mean we need to rush into, like, outrage and clickbait and stuff like that. Everyone just needs to make sure that they're going slow and really looking at what the evidence actually says.
Worst crimes they can, so it's important both to get those who take risks out of the area safely and to make sure serious charges can't stick to anyone else. In some cases, you can bring together multi-leveled groups in which everyone knows the general goal, but only a few know critical details such as what the target is or who is to carry out the riskiest activity. Be prepared for the best case scenario as well as the worst. New ideas, if they are good ones, tend to fail because people don't take them far enough, whereas older ideas usually fail because they are too familiar to everyone, including the authorities.
That's so interesting. Older ideas usually fail because they're too familiar to everyone, including the authorities, whereas newer ideas may not be taken as seriously. Let's listen to that again in a second, but I've stopped because I have another super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Why do you think conservative media isn't in tune with the realities you show here about the left? Can I be just real? Can I be real with you guys for a second? Can I be real? I've gotten over 3,000 new subscribers on my YouTube channel in the last 3 days. You guys have to understand, my YouTube channel has been shadow banned for years. It has been impossible over the last... I've been doing this. I've been covering the far left like this for over 3 years. I've been doing this 6 days a week for over 3 years. It has been impossible to get conservative media to look at this information. I used to waste countless hours reaching out to conservative media. I have my audience, and people who have been around the channel can attest to this. It has been an extraordinarily painful effort on the part of hundreds of people on my channel that come to almost every single stream. And that's not even counting the people who come every once in a while. Like, I know you come every once in a while, right? But there have been people on my channel that have gotten so pissed off about this in the last couple of years of seeing all this stuff that shows up in conservative media that is nowhere near as outlandish as the stuff we cover on this channel. And it gets all this coverage and it gets all this clickbait outrage and all this stuff. And we can't get anything covered. And we can't get anyone to talk about this. And it has been a maddening experience. And people on my channel know this. I have multiple times almost entirely quit doing this. If you go back on my channel, there are videos of me probably at least once every 6 months doing some sort of crying stream on the internet where I'm like, no one's listening and this is a big waste of my time and I'm killing myself and I'm driving myself insane and I'm putting myself through all this shit and no one's fucking listening and I can't get anyone to talk about it. I have had multiple breakdowns where I was almost this close to quitting at least 4 times in the last year and a half. But I'm obsessed with this and I just can't quit, and so I kept going with it. But I got to tell you guys, I've been actually really emotional in the last 3 days just seeing this sudden and really unexpected growth on my channel and seeing all these new people here and seeing how receptive people are to this information. I've been like crying. I've been so emotional about it because we haven't been able to get people to look at this for years. And not only have we not been able to get people to look at it, I have been smeared by conservative influencers. I've been defamed by conservative influencers. I have people like Konstantin Kisin running around the internet telling people I'm insane because I tried to show him primary source evidence. James Lindsay has called me a narcissist up and down the internet. He spread all these horrible lies about me just to try to get people to not look at what I was doing. I felt like I was running uphill trying to carry a giant-ass boulder every single day for fucking years. So why doesn't conservative media cover it? I don't know, man. Ask them. Ask them. I've been doxxed by conservatives. I've been harassed by conservatives almost like to the point of almost giving this up entirely many, many times because I could not get them to talk about it. But I always knew if my content got in front of real people, that real people would see. And so now, at least in the last 3 days, thousands and thousands and thousands more people are seeing my content than have seen it in a while. And I just really hope the momentum keeps up. And I really hope people subscribe to the content. And I really hope people share it. And I hope people learn something from it. And that's all I can do. I have long since given up on conservative media sharing this content. I don't even bother anymore. I don't even bother trying to go on podcasts or anything because they never know what's going on and they're never interested. So my job is to show up and to do these streams and to do my Substack and to do my podcast and stuff like that and to tell people what's going on. And I'm putting the content out there, and I just have to hope that once it gets to real people, they will see and they will come, and I won't need conservative media or conservative influencers ever again because they are the ones that have impeded my work more than almost anyone else. The left does not harass me or bother me nearly as much as the right does. The left doesn't even pay attention to me. They know who I am. A lot of them have me blocked on all these platforms, whatever. But the amount of blowback that I've received from the right over the last several years, they have literally tried to destroy me, destroy my reputation, destroy my work, do everything they can to get people to not listen to me. And it's all because all of this, what I cover, destroys the conservative narrative. Because the primary source evidence does not align with what conservatives are telling their audiences. It's not the same. And so once people start seeing this, and I've had so many people on my channel wake up, I've had so many people watch my content and go, fuck conservative media. They never told us this. And it's because they can't. Because the minute that you start seeing the real content is the minute that you realize that it's way worse than what conservatives are saying, that there's no reason for them to show you this content because they would disprove the narrative that they're using to make money. And so here we are. And this is why I always say to people, no one is coming to save you. You have to save yourselves. So.
In some cases, you can bring together multi-leveled groups in which everyone knows the general goal, but only a few know critical details such as what the target is or who is to carry out the riskiest activity. Be prepared for the best case scenario as well as the worst. New ideas, if they are good ones, tend to fail because people don't take them far enough, whereas older ideas usually fail because they are too familiar to everyone, including the authorities. Sometimes, the best results come from applying familiar tactics in entirely new settings. Look back in time for precedents, occasions when similar actions were attempted in similar contexts. These can be very instructive. As you gather years of experience and learn from others' successes and failures, you'll develop skills for predicting and preparing for a wide variety of situations. Preparation. Gather equipment and dress appropriately. Once your plans are laid, draw up a timeline until your action, counting backwards from the big day to establish the deadlines for all the pieces that must be in place. Early
Andy No is well aware of my work. Andy No occasionally shares my work. I'm often asked why Andy No doesn't share more of my work. I am grateful for the stuff that he does share. I think that Andy No's work is pretty good. There are some things that I vehemently disagree with him on, but it's an intellectual disagreement. I don't dislike Andy No. When people ask me why Andy doesn't share more of my work, I don't know what to tell them. So I would recommend people ask him, because I don't know what to tell them, because I don't know what the answer is to that question. I suspect it has to do with who Andy is paid by. I suspect it has to do with the narrative that Andy wants out there, because Andy does craft narratives. And that is the intellectual disagreement that I have with him. I think he crafts narratives instead of just following where the evidence goes. But it's not as though what he's reporting isn't happening, but he's fitting it into a story. So I'm grateful for every single time he does share my work. It helps get out there to more people. I really wish he shared more of it, and I wish he understood more of what I did. But I appreciate him.
On in the planning, work out what funding, materials, and other resources you will need and how to obtain them. If security is a priority, obtain what you need in such a way that it cannot be traced to you. Affinity groups from out of town can acquire potentially incriminating materials far from the site of the action. Make sure everyone has appropriate clothes for the action, including different outfits in layers if necessary.
Even talking about how to dress.
Take security issues into account as they relate to clothing. If everyone is dressing in black for anonymity, be sure no one's clothes have unique identifying features. Likewise, if you're going to be posing as random passers-by.
Trantifa may be a catchy phrase, but it's not accurate. Queer Marxism is what it is. It has a proper name. They're queer Marxists. And the reason this is a problem is that queer and trans are not the same thing at all. Trans activism is a completely separate thing from queer Marxists. And what Andy is talking about are queer Marxists. And that is the reason I'm so adamant about this. This Trantifa thing that he's doing is stupid. The naming convention is dumb. Because queer Marxists, and if you guys stick around the channel, you'll learn this. Queer Marxism is legitimately like the worst, most dangerous thing that is going on right now on the left. And I cover queer Marxism extensively. I'm working on 2 books about queer Marxism. Like this is a topic this was supposed to be Queer Marxism Month, and then there were riots and we had to change the plan. But this title that Andy made up is really, really, really unhelpful in terms of getting people to understand what queer Marxism is. And that is my issue with it. It's not that I dislike his coverage. The content that he's covering is critical. Andy uncovers, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for. Andy uncovers stories no one else is talking about. That type of coverage is critical. This is why, like, I have no personal beef with Andy. No, I have a very strong intellectual disagreement with him about how he's presenting the content. Because I think he's not thinking about teaching people. He's thinking about, how do I craft this for a media narrative? Trantifa is not a real group, and queer Marxists are not even... Okay, there is some overlap between queer Marxist groups and Antifa, but there are also queer Marxist groups, very dangerous queer Marxist groups, that are not Antifa. And Andy won't listen, by the way, on this issue. I've actually had this argument with him. We're covering a specific group right now called Bashback. You can find my previous coverage of it. You can find it on my Substack. Bashback is a militant, violent queer Marx. Have all the Antifa-like qualities, and they have a whole extra helping of queer insanity on top of it. And Andy will not admit that these are two separate groups with two separate organizing structures with two separate goals. Bashback has published all this stuff about what they're doing. They're not Antifa, and Andy won't admit it, and he's wrong. So these things matter, guys. When you're trying to educate the public about what is going on, it is actually, you have to have a nuanced perspective of this. Because again, the whole point of doing this is, if you don't understand your enemy, you can't defeat them. If people think that Bashback is the same as Antifa, then when Bashback starts causing a whole lot of problems this summer, as I promise you they're going to, people are going to think they're the same thing when they're not. That means they don't understand their enemy. So that's my intellectual issue with Andy. I think that he could be convinced, and that's something I'm going to keep working on. It's not a personal thing. I personally like Andy a lot. I just think he is very, very, very wrong on this issue.
Remember that civilian dress is different in Miami than it is in Seattle. If timing is important, make sure everyone's watches are synchronized. Double check to make sure everything is ready by your deadline. Go through a practice run, verbally if not physically. If participants are unfamiliar with the area, distribute maps. If need be, plant necessary materials in the area in advance of the action, being careful not to give anything away in the process.
Like pallets of bricks? Are they planting materials in the area like pallets of bricks that they steal from construction sites?
Reader's note, I just also wanted to throw in here, tattoos and hair or dyed hair can be identifying features as well. So just making sure to be careful as you plan. Scouting. Study the site of the action and stay abreast of changes. Before the action, study...
What would help you identify queer Marxists? Okay. I've done a lot of content about queer Marxism. We will come back to, we'll do more thorough streams about queer Marxism in the future. In general, what you're going to be looking for is an upside down pink triangle. It may also be right side up, but typically the pink triangle is upside down. You may see signs that say queers bash back. You may just see so you might see the pink triangle with like the A in it, like the anarchist symbol. That you might see them. So one of the big differences between Antifa and Bashback is Antifa wears red and black. Bashback wears pink and black, hot pink and black. And I know it's a small difference, but it is actually a difference. They have a different uniform. So those are some of the brief things we will cover. I've covered queer Marxism extensively on the channel. You can go back into the archives. I will cover it extensively again, just not today.
The area carefully. Chart safe routes in and out. Look for hiding places, obstacles, potential targets, and surveillance cameras, including those in ATMs and stoplights. Note how long it takes to travel key distances and be aware of the visibility from and of key locations. How close are the authorities? How long will it take them to arrive? Can their approach be delayed? Who else is in the area? While scouting, be careful not to call attention to yourself or leave an obvious record of your passing. Be sure to do at least some of your scouting at the same time of day as the planned action, and, if possible, do a quick check immediately before it to make sure nothing has changed. If your action calls for daunting tasks, such as climbing a steep rooftop, it may be good to make an actual practice run.
Like
at some
climbing a
point.
rooftop. Okay, like climbing a rooftop.
Information can also be gathered from photos, maps, and brochures. Aerial maps or blueprints may be available. In some cases, you can obtain information from a tourist center or call and ask questions on a pretext, as a student doing a report, for example. Or even receive a guided tour. Once you've collected a lot of information, it can be helpful to consolidate the important parts into a map suited to your needs. Be careful.
They're talking about staking out the locations where they want to pull this shit. They're like, why don't you go on a guided tour of that building that you're planning on firebombing? Why don't you sneak away from the tour group and go up on the roof and scout that out? Hey, it might be a good place to throw Molotov cocktails from after all.
Dispose of all files and paperwork securely.
Come on.
Roles. Divide up responsibilities and set up decision-making structures. Identify all the roles necessary to pull off your plan and make sure every one of these is filled. Some potential roles include lookouts, scouts, police liaisons, media spokespeople, internal or embedded media, legal aid contacts, legal observers, medics, distractions, quote-unquote plants. For example, people disguised as innocent bystanders who are ready to intervene if necessary, or who will politely honk their horns while a barricade is erected in front of them. Getaway drivers, people to transport materials, people to receive information and make tactical decisions, and people to carry out the actual action. In some situations, it is wise to have understudies for important roles in case it turns out at the last minute that someone can't participate. This is especially true if you don't know in advance what the date of your action will be. For example, if it is to coincide with an event that you cannot predict in advance, such as the announcement of a verdict or a declaration of war. Diplomacy.
Yep, exactly.
Consider the way each action will affect others. If your action is taking place during or as part of a larger event, there may be large meetings at which different groups try to coordinate their efforts. These can be useful, but they tend to consume a lot of time and energy, so make sure you go into them knowing exactly what you hope to accomplish. Whether you're acting in the midst of thousands of other activists or far away from anyone, take into account the way your actions will affect other people. Will they endanger others? Will they provoke police repression? If so, will others bear the brunt of it, and is it possible to offset this? Will your actions make it more difficult for other people to do important work in a given community? Are there negotiations or reassurances you should engage in before, during, or after the action? Honor all agreements you make with other groups. Some might be willing to help you, with or without knowledge of the specific details of what you're doing. Over time, if you prove reliable and considerate, you'll build alliances with them. There's a graphic, but the sentiment in the center is a spoke for each affinity group communicates the sentiments of their group to the spokes council. During and after the action. Awareness. Stay alert throughout the action. Awareness is key to the success of any action. Often, the atmosphere can change very quickly.
Oh,
It is
yeah?
important to keep up with what is going on.
How many states have activated the National Guard? I know Texas activated the National Guard. I know Missouri now apparently has activated the National Guard. I did see big protests in St. Louis. Have any other states activated the National Guard?
Around and to have established in advance how you will react to a given scenario. For example, is the arrival of a single police car a big deal? How about 10? Is it common for police to tail marchers in the city? While you can never be certain of exactly what will happen, going over possible scenarios in advance and having an idea of how your group wants to deal with them will give everyone a more solid idea of how to react and how not to overreact as the situation develops. When informing others of a development, announce the raw information, not the conclusions you may have drawn from it. Quote, the police are putting on gas masks, unquote, not, quote, they're going to gas us, unquote, so others can draw their own conclusions. Resist the urge to panic and the tendency to get carried away as well. Communications. Keep each other informed.
Hang on. It is a standard operating procedure for terrorism. It sounds like an SOP for terrorism because it is. Now consider this, Cam. This Antifa manual for how to commit terrorism has been on the internet since 2017. How many Antifa riots have we been through since 2017? When at any point, any of the good conservative influencers could have found this document and could have said, hi, audience, here's the Antifa terrorism manual. Do you guys want to read the Antifa terrorism manual? Should we read it? Should we see how Antifa is committing terrorism? What if just one big-time conservative influencer had said, hey guys, do you want to look at this this manual where Antifa is literally planning to firebomb buildings and help people escape arrest, and they're talking about staking out buildings, and they're talking about all this stuff in relation to breaking the law? What if just one conservative influencer had ever covered this? Why are you only hearing about it now? That's the question that people should be asking. This document's been around for a long time. I promise you, every member of Antifa has read this document. Every person involved in the violence that's going on, they've read this document. Why hasn't the FBI done anything about this? Why hasn't the DOJ done anything about this? Why hasn't any politician read this document on the floor of Congress? Why hasn't this ever been brought up in a congressional hearing? We've had about 15 meetings about anti-Semitism in the last 6 months. There have been how many countless congressional hearings about anti-Semitism, 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 anti-Semitism in the last 6 months? We've watched a lot of them on the channel. Why hasn't there been one conservative politician, one conservative influencer that thought, hey guys, maybe this is important?
During the action, scouts can keep track of changes in the terrain, such as arriving police, crowd movements, others' activities nearby, and safe zones. They can use communication systems such as burner phones, encrypted text messaging, two-way radios or whistles to keep in touch. Audio or visual signals such as car horns or fireworks can also serve. A police scanner can be used to monitor police communications. To make communication more efficient, scouts can report to an individual or subgroup in the center of the action. In a larger setting, they can phone in their findings to a central information hub, which others can call with questions. Just as communications equipment can make you more efficient and effective, it also increases the risk of surveillance. You can use codes and code names, but be judicious. Complicated codes are easy to forget, and prosecutors can argue that your codes meant something more drastic than they actually did. Even if no other communication system is used, it can be useful to have the option of an quote-unquote abort signal for emergencies. Dispersal.
Hey, let me talk about this specifically. We got to start wrapping up the stream because we got something else to do, but I'm going to talk about this specifically, and then we're going to finish this. How does Bannon not report on this nonstop? You know, I was asked to go on his show. After I went undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference, because at that conference, I reported the head of the American Library Association for saying that libraries should be sites of Marxist organizing. You guys may have seen this. Did anyone see the story almost a couple years ago now, where the president of the American Library Association said that libraries should be sites of Marxist organizing? And it was kind of a grainy audio recording of them saying that. Yeah, I recorded that. I recorded that at the Socialism conference. I was undercover. I was the one that was there. I got that recording. It was a small little recorder in my pocket. That's why it sounded so bad. I had never used the recorder before, which is why it sounded so bad. That was me. So I was invited to go on Bannon's show when that happened. And then they canceled, and then I kept following up with them to try to reschedule, and they said, no, we're not interested anymore. And then so I never heard from them again. So it's not as though they don't have my info. They've already invited me once and then disinvited me. So that's that.
Quit while you're ahead. A safe escape is the most commonly overlooked part of direct action organizing. Be sure to have an exit strategy worked out in advance. If you'll be in a large group, especially with others who haven't been part of the planning.
Hang on. Scott, thanks for the super chat. I hope sometime you will say more about your fascinating observations earlier. Read the use of drums and actions to coordinate dynamics. If I have more to say about that, Scott, I will, but I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you.
Process, think about how to avoid the herd mentality that keeps crowds together after it would be better to split up. Know when to press your advantage and when to quit, when to run as fast as you can, and when to walk nonchalantly. Discard anything that could incriminate you, if possible in a place it will not be found. Wait to change your appearance until you're sure you're no longer under observation. If need be, gather in a safe place afterwards and make sure everyone is accounted for. Collect bail money, seek outside assistance, write press releases. While everyone involved is still around, get contact information for anyone who might be able to testify or provide documentation to assist arrestees. Debriefing. Regroup to discuss what went well and what lessons can be learned. Reader's note, in the organizing tradition that I have come up in and practiced with, we would often do KLPDQs, which were key learnings, pluses, delta, which is the symbol for change over time, things that you would do differently, and Q, questions. Back to the text. After the action, destroy any evidence that could be used against you.
Oh,
Keep tools that could be tied to the action in a hiding place outside your home.
wow.
If you may have to testify in court at some date in the far future, consider writing down all the details you might need to remember on a piece of paper and concealing it in some place where you can be sure it will never be found. Get together in a secure setting and go over what happened. Follow up on ongoing matters such as supporting those with court cases, providing further clarification to the public as to the goals of and ideas behind the action, and sorting out conflicts. Celebrate your victories, offer each other constructive criticism, learn from your mistakes, and lay plans for the next project. This has been a step-by-step guide to direct action, what it is, what it's good for, and how it works. Written by CrimeThink and published on crimethink.com in 2017.
And still on that website today. Well, that is the end of the Antifa Terrorism Manual. How do people feel about that? What are your thoughts overall on the Antifa Terrorism Manual? That's really what I should have called this stream. We're going to listen to the Antifa Terrorism Manual today. Congratulations. Okay. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Well, I'm sorry. They firebombed the Seattle police station yesterday. Firebombing the Seattle police station is not LARPing. Firebombing the Seattle police station is actual terrorism. Yep. Fun times. Fun times. Well, let me ask this. Who wants to go inside a leftist organizing meeting tonight? Do you guys want to go inside a leftist organizing meeting tonight? Because I have another stream coming up. In around about 15 minutes. And we are going to go inside the last organizing call prior to the No Kings protest. It is going to be a completely different stream. I'm going to shut this stream down. We're going to start up a new stream. On Rumble, I will be starting a new stream on Rumble as well. And so you guys can find the link there. I'll put the YouTube link in the chat. Or whatever platform you're watching on, I will be setting up a new stream on whatever platform. So we are going to end this stream, guys, and I'm going to go just take a teeny tiny little break, and then I'm going to start up the other stream. The leftist organizing meeting starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so you have about half an hour. If you want to go get a snack or go hit the bathroom or anything like that, we will still be here waiting. But I appreciate everyone coming out. I appreciate everyone who has been subscribing to the channel and interacting with the content in the last couple of days. Please come and watch this stuff with us. It's crazy. I will show you things no one else on the internet is showing you. Hey, before I wrap up the stream, you guys want to see my shawl? Hang on. Hang on. Breaking news. I'm almost done the first part of my shawl that I'm working on. Almost done. I have like this much more to do. Okay? Here's my shawl. It's big. And I'm going to do a red border along the bottom next. So that's my shawl that I'm working on in case you guys are seeing me knitting. In case you were curious. But I'm going to go for now, guys. Also, a reminder, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That's not what I wanted to show you. This is what I wanted to show you. Please make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Please make sure you have mounted the like button on the way out the door. And please, of course, make sure you are subscribed to my Substack. This is where I post all my breakdowns at the far left. You can find an archive of my content over there. You can find breakdowns and trainings and all sorts of good stuff. It's great for new people. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. And you guys are the ones that help me fund this. I cannot do this without you guys. I take no political money. I am 100% funded by people like you who just want access to the information. I will show you the receipts. Everything I do is primary source evidence. Haha. Hey, I was wondering if you were listening, Blue Bear Fascist. Yep. 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 LARPing. Yep. Yep. Anyway, I'm going to shut down this stream, guys, and we're going to go do the other stream in a couple minutes. We're going to go inside a live leftist organizing training. So I will see you guys on the other side, and if I don't see you for the organizing meeting, I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m., and we do Socialism Saturdays on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you to everyone who sent in a super chat. Thank you to everyone who's supporting my work. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys on the other side in like 15 minutes. Okay, bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.